introduction from the Secretary General.
The situation in Venezuela has polarized the entire planet, leaving the Venezuelan people as the main affected actors of this issue. In one side, the right of self-determination limits the participation of external international bodies. Unfortunately, the violation of human rights in such country demands that same participation. The United Nations, alongside the General Assembly, has the inherent task of promoting the dialogue between nations, always taking into account the purposes and principles within the Charter of the United Nations. This meeting involves that exceptional goal, as well as the enormous historic relevance of the topic. We hope for the well-being of the Venezuelan people and the preservation of the basis of international respect and human rights that this session of the General Assembly succeeds on its duty.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. The first meeting of Munio General Assembly is called to order.
The proposal for the provisional agenda for this meeting is the social and political crisis of Venezuela. Delegates who vote for this topic, please raise your placards. The agenda is adopted.
In accordance with Rule 39 of the Assembly's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the following countries to participate in this meeting: French Republic, United States of America, United Mexican States, Federal Republic of Brazil, Republic of Cuba, Russian Federation, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Republic of Colombia, People's Republic of China, Kingdom of Spain, Plurinational State of Bolivia, Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Seeing no objection, it is so decided.
The General Assembly will now begin its consideration of the item on its agenda. I now give the floor to Venezuela.
Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a privilege for me to stand before you concerning the current threats to Venezuelan peace and security. We address this assembly on behalf of Constitutional President Nicolás Maduro, and therefore on behalf of the sovereign people of Venezuela. Today, we should not discuss the situation within the Venezuelan borders, but around it. Once again, we're witnesses at the beginning of an spectacle that the United States has created around Venezuela and our rightful government with the only purpose of getting their hands on the Venezuelan oil. In the slightly less than 100 years, from 1898 to 1994, the US government has intervened successfully to change governments in Latin America as a total of 41 times. On January 23, 2019, a member of the National Assembly declared himself interim president of Venezuela with the authorization of the American government. This action is nothing more than a coup d'etat against the democratically elected government and a clear violation of Article 233 of the Bolivarian Constitution, the UN democratic charters, and the main principles of international law. It is said that just because there are no boots on the ground, it's not interventionism, but the crushing economic sanctions, CIA cover-ups, illegal occupying embassies, and a campaign to delegitimize a nation's entire government are absolutely interventionism. President Donald Trump has imposed unilateral sanctions on Venezuela, creating suffering in the Venezuelan population. The American government offers $20 million on humanitarian aid, but orders to freeze the Venezuelan bank accounts for up to $1.2 billion, $1.5 billion of Venezuelan gold frozen by the Bank of England, and $700 million of PDVSA's assets kidnapped in the US. 1 month after the failed attempt of a coup d'etat, the Venezuelan borders were threatened. On February 23rd, law enforcement acted to protect their country against foreign enemies. The question is, which of the governments present would have acted differently on an attack on their borders? Is not the United States trying to build a wall on its southern border? We can assure the Venezuelan people that the so-called humanitarian aid stationed in Colombia will not be like the one sent to Nicaragua in the 1980s, that instead of being food and medical supplies, there were weapons and ammunition to overthrow the government. For 73 years, the United Nations has been the highest symbol of global integration and cooperation. We cannot allow imperialist governments to transform this respected organization into a political weapon that will only tear down freedom and democracy. Having explained the situation, the solutions that this delegation gives to this issue are to invoke Article 96 of the UN chapter that states that the General Assembly may request the International Court of Justice to give an advisory opinion on any legal question, in this case, the American intervention in Venezuela, to take the US, the UK, and Colombia before the International Court of Justice for a clear violation of Article 92 of the UN chapter that says that the International Court of Justice shall be the principal judicial organ of the world, and no other country can execute actions against other states. The Venezuelan government calls upon the Montevideo mechanism and is willing to start talks with the opposition with the help of Mexico and Uruguay, hoping to find common ground and avoid any kind of political intervention, always looking for the well-being of the Venezuelan population. The time for half measures in the United Nations is over. The time has come to exhaust all of our diplomatic means before it's too late. And a military intervention takes place, commanded by the American imperialist government. This assembly must now adopt the strongest possible measures against intromission on the Venezuelan domestic affairs. To all the ambassadors, the collaboration of all nations present is necessary. The delegation of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela is completely disposed to work along other nations if necessary. And to President Donald Trump, the people of Venezuela have a message for you. Hands off, Venezuela. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate. You are now recognized to take your seat. I shall now give the floor to the Republic of Colombia.
Buen día, honorable members of the chair and fellow delegates. The delegation of the Republic of Colombia, representing the Colombian people, and President Iván Duque Márquez, thanks the honorable chair for the opportunity to discuss and find possible solutions to an ongoing crisis that threatens peace, security, and human rights. All nations must come together in order to solve the crisis that Venezuela is going through due to corruption. The crisis in Venezuela has become the worst humanitarian and migratory crisis of history in South America. President Duque strongly believes that this crisis is happening because of the corruption and violence Venezuela lives with. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Colombia has received more than 1 million Venezuelans that fled the country. The international community must come together so this massive exodus and oppressive dictatorship comes to an end. The solution to the Venezuelan crisis should not be with military action. The country needs Maduro to leave power so elections can take place. President Duque recognizes Juan Guaidó as president of Venezuela and is supporting him with humanitarian aid, trying to get it into Venezuela. 3 weeks ago, Nicolás Maduro interrupted diplomatic relations with Colombia as violence broke out along the two countries' borders. International aid for Venezuela was going to be transported into the country according to Juan Guaidó's established deadline. Maduro declared that the aid coming into Venezuela was an attempt of coup. The actions taken by Maduro cannot be understood by the Colombian government because people are suffering, people are starving, and aid needs to enter the country. President Duque spoke last month in the Permanent Commission on the Organization of American States. It is important to highlight that the future of Venezuela and Colombia are related. If Venezuela rises again, Colombia will rise with it. This is the reason why all migrants and refugees need to have a light of hope. They need to know the dictatorship and terror regime shall be over soon, and they will no longer starve or lack of resources. The basic needs of the Venezuelans need to be covered and granted, because it is a human right, and it should not be violated. Duque stated that the night of dictatorship in Venezuela will not last forever and has already reached its end. The Lima Group has discussed the Venezuelan crisis, and they are trying to create the initiatives of regional coordination to reestablish democracy and the recognition of all human rights in Venezuela. This group recognizes Juan Guaidó as president because the elections that took place last year and gave Maduro 6 more years in power were illegal. They are trying to address the humanitarian, political, and economic crisis that Venezuela is going through. In order to solve the Venezuelan crisis, the Republic of Colombia proposes: first, the international community must free all political prisoners. Second, Maduro has to be judged by the International Court of Justice for committing crimes against humanity. Third, increase actions to support Juan Guaidó's political transition. 4, send humanitarian aid to Venezuela. And 5, once Maduro is out of power, stop the isolation to Venezuela. The Venezuelan crisis is a problem that should concern all the members of the international community. Efforts and support to the political transition need to be enforced so elections can take place. Human rights violations and the regime of terror need to come to an end. The Organization of the American States and the United Nations need to attend the proposals made by the Lima Group. Finally, as President Iván Duque said, history will not be written in service to the victimizers, but in recognition of the victims. Thank you.
Thank you, Munio. You are recognized to take your seats.
I now give the floor to the Federative Republic of Brazil.
Boa tarde, fellow delegates and honorable chair for approvals. The delegation of the Federative Republic of Brazil is more than pleased to be here and would like to thank the UN, the chair, and the delegates for the invitation to attend this committee in order to discuss and find solutions for the following problem. In the last 3 years, Venezuela has withered. Under its stubborn and increasingly undemocratic President Nicolás Maduro, the nation has collected political, economic, and social problems which have dragged thousands of Venezuelans into hunger and unemployment. The current minimum wage stands at around $30, with inflation rates up to 1,000,000% in 2018 and an 18% drop in GDP according to forecasts of the International Monetary Fund. Much of the population has been driven to seek opportunities in neighboring countries. Since 2015, almost 2 million people have left Venezuela, according to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. The Federative Republic of Brazil has kept its border open, allowing for the registration via refuge or residence, what Luis Fernando Godinho considered as the first step toward humanitarian support. The response Brazil has employed has been very sophisticated. The government has given an emergency reply, mobilizing the armed forces and making great efforts to preserve the lives and integrity of the refugees. The Brazilian Ministry of Defense is negotiating with the Venezuelan armed force to prevent further violence or a humanitarian aid delivery and remove some heavy artillery from both sides of the border. And Brazilian Vice President Hamilton Mourão, a 4-star general, says Brazil rejects taking any extreme measures in Venezuela. Having explained the situation, the proposals that the Federative Republic of Brazil gives to solve this issue are: resolve the political crisis. It is about restoring the democratic system that allows guaranteed respect for human, political, and economic rights, to preserve a balance that allows the development of the country and his relationship with the rest of the world. Redesign the economic system and support the legal basis so that something similar is not repeated. Develop industries of all kinds and with good enough guarantees that generate confidence. International investors will be able to return to Venezuela. With a major commitment and concerted efforts by all countries working towards the goal of solving the Venezuelan crisis, it is in our hands to find viable solutions and stop this problem in order to prevent future catastrophes. In true democracy, every man and woman is taught to think for himself and herself. Mahatma Gandhi. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Beloved. You are recognized to take your seat.
I shall give the floor to the French Republic.
Tout d'abord, je tiens à remercier la présidence de l'Assemblée, Mesdames et Messieurs, le chef d'État, des gouvernements, distingués ambassadeurs. Si je suis aujourd'hui devant vous, si j'ai aujourd'hui le privilège de parler devant vous, je sais à qui je le dois. C'est grâce aux milliers de personnes qui, tout au long de l'histoire, ont lutté aussi bien pacifiquement que de manière qu'en ayant recours à la force pour défendre leurs droits et la démocratie, et sans lequel ni nos nations, ni cette assemblée n'existeraient à présent. Néanmoins, protéger la démocratie n'est pas particulièrement dévansant, car au moment où la démocratie est en danger, il a besoin de notre voix et notre défense. Et là, cette démocratie est maintenant mise en cause en Venezuela, à l'heure où les droits humains sont violés. La situation est inconcevable. La dictature tente de se survivre au prix d'une détresse humanitaire sans précédent, alors même que la ressource du pays reste considérable. De plus, ce régime, aussi bien oppresseur qu'illégitime, n'arrête de commettre des crimes déplorables, tels que l'assassinat de Paola Ramírez Gómez, une jeune étudiante de 23 ans qui, après une manifestation pacifiste, a été atteinte par un coup de feu, lui causant instantanément la mort le 19 avril 2017. 5 535 opposants au régime actuel ont été tués par la police et par des groupes paramilitaires l'année dernière, selon l'Observatoire vénézuélien des violences, dont la plupart d'eux n'avaient que 29 ans et font seuls aux études, tout comme Paola Ramírez. C'est pour cela que je m'adresse à vous, puisque la manque de réaction face à cette crise où le pays est immergé, prend en conséquence la noyade du peuple vénézuélien qui a beaucoup résisté, et qui maintenant nécessite le support de la communauté internationale. J'exhorte alors à tous les pays du monde de soutenir les envies démocratiques du peuple vénézuélien qui essaie de se livrer toujours de l'état mafieux de Maduro, ou à défaut, et de ces Vénézuéliens qui, là, de l'état pénible de conditions de vie à leur pays, décident de les quitter. Mais ne vous trompez pas, la France ne demande pas aux autres nations de soutenir une intervention armée. Car violer la souveraineté du peuple, violer la souveraineté d'une nation pour éliminer les gouvernements qui enfreignent les droits du peuple, c'est comme abattre l'arbre où il n'y a plus de fléau. À la fin, il ne reste ni fléau ni arbre. Je suis convaincu que les Vénézuéliens réussiront à constituer un état de droit, juste, égalitaire et authentique, dans un procès accompagné de justice, pour les crimes commis, ainsi que des organismes juridiques forts vis-à-vis de la régulation idéologique qui règne actuellement dans les pays. Monsieur le chef d'État, monsieur le délégué, on peut taire une personne, on peut opprimer un peuple, mais les plusieurs peuples unis par un bien commun ne feront qu'à laisser une trace indélébile. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Delegate. You are now recognized to take your seats.
The United Mexican States is recognized to have the floor.
Among individuals, as among nations, respect for the rights of others is peace. Entre los individuos como entre las naciones, el respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. Benito Juárez. Good afternoon, fellow delegates, honorable members of the chair, and other present here. On behalf of the President, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and other people of this nation, the delegation of the United Mexican States would like to thank all of you for the invitation to such an important event
and to attend this committee in order to discuss the political and social crisis in Venezuela, since it is a problem that affects the Venezuelan people and concerns the delegation's presence today. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela has been in the news on and off for the past years, since an humanitarian, socioeconomic, and political crisis has been taking place in an empowering way, leaders in Latin America and perhaps the world, for the most of the 20th century. According to human rights organizations, the stories of abuse and torture have been constant over the past few years. Due to their economic policies, crime, corruption, economic downturn, shortages, unemployment, hyperinflation, human rights violations, authoritarianism, and political conflict that have left many Venezuelans struggling to afford basic items such as food and toilets. The clinging to power of the president, Nicolás Maduro, has undermined freedoms, bullied and imprisoned his opponents, and sent millions of Venezuelans into exile or in search of political asylum. His regime has become more isolated from the international community by the day, ending with 3 million of Venezuelans leaving the country since 2014, and a crisis concerning of who is legitimate president that has been underway since January 10 of 2019. It should be emphasized and made clear that the position of the United Mexican States in this crisis is that the President Nicolás Maduro is not supported, neither does it support a coup d'etat to unseat him, and much less an armed intervention backed by other nations. Today, the stance of present in the political constitution of the United Mexican States is the main reason why this nation cannot recognize Juan Guaidó as legitimate president. Thanks to all of this nation has expressed its concern and has taken action through different initiatives and agreements for the liberation of political prisoners, the organization of free and democratic elections, and reproaches the acts of violence, repression, and corruption. This delegation is deeply worried about the situation, and having explained it, the proposals that the United Mexican States gives to fight this crisis are: open a dialogue between Nicolás Maduro and the Venezuelan opposition, endorsing the search for a peaceful solution to the crisis, and revive a generous asylum policy in order to accept asylum requests from thousands of Venezuelans. Delegates, the collaboration of all nations here is necessary to find solutions and solve this crisis in order to prevent more disastrous events. We as nations have the responsibility to act in order to help and protect the Venezuelan people. Thank you all for the attention. La patria es primero.
I now give the floor to the United States of America.
The General Assembly demands silence and respect from all the audience, please.
Good afternoon, fellow delegates, world ambassadors, and distinguished members of the chair. On behalf of the President, Donald J. Trump, the delegation of the United States of America would like to thank all representatives here united to address the situation regarding the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and would like to thank the Secretary General for convening this session. The humanitarian, economic, and political crisis in Venezuela has deteriorated and reached a point of serious concern, in which the population is being affected in a systematic way. The scarcity of essential supplies, such as food and medicines, the deterioration of basic infrastructure necessary to provide urban services, and the collapse of the health system have only aggravated the situation of this nation. This country's inflation rate has been measured in 1.37% by the International Monetary Fund on 2015. And beneath that harsh statistic, there is a grinning scenario of human misery. Today, a box of pills costs more than monthly minimum wage. 9 out of 10 citizens live under the line of poverty. Millions of them lack access to drinking water or food. Infant mortality has doubled in recent years, and people are suffering from starvation and malnutrition. Parallel to the present dimensions of the economic crisis, fundamental human rights and freedoms are being violated due to lack of democratic principles, along with the oppressive regime of Nicolás Maduro. HIMA Group has condemned over 8,000 extrajudicial executions and 12,000 arbitrary arrests of political opposition and pacific protesters. Furthermore, rule of law has been shattered by Nicolás Maduro's attempt to delegitimize the National Assembly and the creation of an illegal and constituent assembly. This delegation strongly objects to indiscriminate use of force and reiterates the importance of diplomatic dialogue to mitigate human rights and concerns due to political polarization in this country. The rupture of constitutional order and the pressing crisis have forced over 3 million Venezuelans to abandon the country since 2015, provoking a migratory crisis. Subsequently, it has overwhelmed the capacity of regional countries to adequately address migrants' needs. This situation poses a threat to regional stability, together with the regime's violent refusal to allow humanitarian aid to enter Venezuela, which have led to violence on 2 international borders. This delegation does not recognize the outcome of the electoral process held on May 20, which lacked of the participation of all Venezuelan political actors and international guarantees essential for a fair and transparent democratic process. Therefore, it considers the presidency of Maduro as illegitimate. In this regard, the United States of America recalls its commitment to restoring the prosperity of this sovereign nation and would like to bring forward some possible solutions to mitigate the suffering of its people. 1. To hold transparent elections watched by international community with impartiality, respecting the Article 223 of the Venezuelan Constitution and international democratic standards. 2. In order to prevent further deterioration of the humanitarian situation, this delegation calls upon the government of Venezuela to facilitate access of assistance to meet the most urgent needs of the population. 3. Promote international cooperation to the points established at the Quito Declaration on Human Mobility of Venezuelan citizens in this region to lessen the migratory crisis. Given these points, the United States of America stresses the need of international collaboration to tackle this problem, and would like to quote Article 25 of the Human Declaration of Human Rights. Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family. This delegation pursues to ensure this fundamental human right in Venezuela. Thanks for the attention.
Thank you, David. You're recognized to take your seat.
I shall now give the floor to the Russian Federation.
Добрый день, fellow delegates, secretariat, and attendees. On behalf of President Vladimir Putin, the delegation of Russia would like to thank the UN for the opportunity to participate in this assembly in order to discuss and find solutions to one of the most alarming issues our world is currently facing, Venezuela's political and social crisis. As it is known, Venezuela's legitimate president is Nicolás Maduro, who has been opposed recently by Juan Guaidó, president of the National Assembly of Venezuela. Guaidó proclaimed himself president in charge of Venezuela on January 23rd of the current year, generating a power struggle. Several nations have been supporting Guaidó's proclamation and publicly recognizing him as Venezuela's president, which has brought up warring uprisings and internal disputes. In spite of the different positions other countries might be taking, Russia supports Maduro and still recognizes him as legitimate presidency. Maduro is still Venezuela's president, and this delegation believes that encouraging a coup d'etat is not a viable solution to a situation with such a degree of delicacy. It is Russia's belief that no foreign power should meddle in the sovereign affairs of a particular state. As a Kremlin statement said, destructive interference from abroad blatantly violates basic norms of international law. Every nation should have the right of deciding their government, which should be chosen by their people, not by other countries. This is to respect each country's sovereignty and self-rule in order to be an independent nation. Russia also believes that the changing power should not be violent and imposed, but peacefully conducted. Because of this delegation encourages Venezuela to call out on an election, following the country's law and letting the people decide who is going to be their next representative, stating that no foreign country should interfere in the process. During this issue, Russia has offered to mediate between Maduro's legitimate government and the opposition if necessary, saying it is ready to cooperate with all political forces that act responsibly. This delegation encourages every nation here present to collaborate in the establishment of a mediating committee in order to help both Venezuelan parties to get to a settlement in the most diplomatic way. This committee should be incorporated by nations with different points of view and reaffirms these nations should only function as an aid, not as an imposition. Delegates and representatives, the collaboration of all nations is essential for the eradication of this problematic. It is necessary that we, as nations, contribute in what is possible and show support to Venezuela on the difficult situation it is currently facing. Thanks for the attention.
Active delegate, you are now recognized to take your seats.
I shall now give the word to the Kingdom of Spain. Buenas tardes, fellow delegates and honorable chair of approvals. The delegation of the Kingdom of Spain is more than pleased to be here, and would like to thank the United Nations, the chair, and the delegates for the invitation to attend this committee in order to discuss and find solutions for the following problem. Venezuela is facing a major political, economic, and social crisis, with hyperinflation, acute scarcity of food, medicine, and other basic goods, along with one of the world's highest murder rates, where more than 3 million Venezuelans have left the country in recent years, where nearly 90% of the country's population lives below the poverty line, and where more than half of the families are unable to meet basic food needs. Clearly, Venezuela has been in crisis for the last few years, scenes that have been marked by the heightened political tension, as the country's embattled government has tried to assert a more authoritarian streak, and tens of thousands of protestants have clashed with the authorities. Therefore, the Kingdom of Spain, deeply concerned by the constant violations to human basic rights, extreme violence, and compromised security that the country is going through, the delegation of Spain, as a host country of many Venezuelan refugees, and as an active member of the United Nations Human Rights Council, committed to the protection and promotion in terms of foreign policies, proposes the following actions. First, to increase funding for Venezuela's affected neighbors, especially Colombia. Countries should also seek ways to leverage international financial institution resources, particularly those of the Inter-American Development Bank, to share the responsibility of providing support to Venezuela's neighbors in South America, in the Caribbean, as they work to accommodate record numbers of refugees. Second, open a formal international criminal court into regime figures responsible for crimes against humanity in Venezuela, and bring charges against them based on the recent referral by 6 countries in the Americas. Third, establish a fund, at least partially, a multilateral reconstruction of the humanitarian relief fund, since the people of Venezuela, as well as the factions within the regime, need to have hope that a better future awaits them after Maduro's regime. Without such hope, it is highly unlikely that Venezuelans in the country will generate the kind of internal pressure needed to complement external pressures and effect change. A clear commitment of support from the international community can help stoke confidence and eliminate any dangerous lags in assistance when it comes to change. Fourth, provide recognized travel credentials to Venezuelans forced to flee without documents, since many Venezuelans have been forced to leave home without access to any passports, as the Maduro regime has long denied passports as a means of exercising control over the population. With a major commitment and concerted efforts by all countries, working towards the goal of humanity wellness, justice for the Venezuelan people, and peace within nations, it is in our hands to find viable solutions and stop this problem in order to prevent future issues. With no further to say, the Kingdom of Spain thanks once again the UN for the opportunity to be a part of this event, and also affirms its position by saying that every country deserves a chance to be listened, to be helped, and to be fought. At his best, man is the noblest of all animals. Separated from law and justice, he is the worst. Aristotle. Por su atención, gracias. Thank you, Delegate Kirk. Take your seat.
I now give the floor to the delegation of the Republic of Cuba.
The sovereignty inherent to all nations of the world is a universally accepted concept that must be defended under all circumstances. It is an irrevocable right that guarantees the free will of a nation to determine its own path. For more than 60 years, Cuba has fought tirelessly to to ensure the liberties of the non-aligned nations of the world, and has always appealed for a more just and unified international community. We will continue to endorse this posture until the world reaches a fair international order in which no country decides above the others, and the voices of all peoples are equally recognized. The Republic of Cuba, with its unparalleled legacy of being a revolutionary force against those who attempt to rule over other peoples of the world, strongly condemns the actions being made by many nations that have been influenced by the United States of America in order to alter the political situation in Venezuela, only because of economic and neo-imperialist interest in the region. Cuba has an intricate history of foreign intervention that has had nothing but negative consequences to our people, and to our self-determination as a free country. After the fighting against Spanish colonialism, other external forces tried to manipulate and change our political system and to destabilize the newly formed government at that time. And the blockade imposed to our territory further violated our right to be in contact with the rest of the world. We repudiate the deployment of such actions in Venezuela. The political strategies used by the United States of America to control and disrupt the free will of our island showed the aggressiveness of the American hegemony over the economically disadvantaged regions of the planet. Now, Venezuela is under the threat of intervention from the United States, and we indisputably reject these intentions. It's in this threatening context that we want to reiterate our support to the Chavist and Bolivarian revolutions led by the constitutional president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros. We also reject sanctions against Venezuela aimed at suffocating or economically hurting Venezuelan families. Many examples throughout history, such as the Vietnam War, the Palestinian conflict, and the war in Afghanistan, clearly indicate that foreign intervention in developing nations is a great and ethically irresponsible mistake that reduces the progress of any given region under external interference. The current management of international affairs of the United States holds a rhetoric of so-called humanitarian intervention in Venezuela. Nevertheless, the statements said by President Donald J. Trump show a contradictory message of hate and discrimination towards Latin American groups living within Venezuela and other neighboring countries. If this hateful speech persists, a long-lasting relationship between the U.S. and our brother nation will remain unachievable. It is only through respect that collaboration is possible. Cuba urges the United Nations to remember its intended purpose as the organism that allows humanity to end the everlasting conflicts of the world through peaceful and diplomatic cooperation among all nations. The posture that this organization must maintain in regard to the current critical state of Venezuela is one of impartiality and objectivity. As our great national hero, Raúl Castro, once said before this assembly on its 70th anniversary, and I quote, "The international community will always be able to count on the Cuba's sincere voice against injustice, underdevelopment, and inequality, and for the establishment of a fair international order truly focused on human beings, their dignity, and their well-being." Thank you very much for your attention.
I now give the floor to the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Good afternoon, fellow delegates and members of the General Assembly. On behalf of the Prime Minister Theresa May, the delegation of the United Kingdom would like to thank the United Nations and the delegates here present for the invitation to attend this committee in order to discuss the social and political crisis in Venezuela. Since the early 2013, unseating the socialist president Nicolás Maduro has been the principal aim of the opposition. Recently, it has come to a head, considering he was re-elected to a second term in May 2018. And the National Assembly does not recognize that election, so they declare the presidency is vacant. This crisis involves many social and economic problems, such as the financial crisis, considering hyperinflation is now at an all-time high, exceeding 1 million% at the end of 2018. The shortage of basic products and medicines,
the increasing unemployment due to the closure of private companies, and massive migration to other countries in the region. Last Wednesday, January 23rd, was the day the President of the National Assembly, Juan Guaidó, declared himself as the President, to which Nicolás Maduro responded by condemning this action as a ploy by the United States of America to oust him and stated he would remain as the constitutional President. Considering the United Kingdom currently broke European ranks last January, sided with the United States against Nicolás Maduro government. Fully aware of the damage and misery this regime has done to Venezuelan people, the United Kingdom, as the Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt stated, recognized National Assembly President Juan Guaidó as the interim president of Venezuela, in line with the Venezuelan Constitution and along the Organization of American States, the Lima Group, the United States, and European partners. Citing Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt, the oppression of the legitimate kleptocratic Maduro regime must end. Those who continue to violate the human rights of ordinary Venezuelans under an illegitimate regime will be called to account. The Venezuelan people deserve a better future. The political and social crisis in Venezuela is a representation of political repression and electoral malpractice of a regime. These are the main reasons why the majority of the House of Commons, which is the lower house of the parliament, condemn the socialist Maduro regime. Empathizing with those affected by crisis in Venezuela, the United Kingdom is providing an emergency aid package to treat malnourished children that includes vaccinations and clean water to the most vulnerable communities. As well, it is providing support to multilateral organizations like the United Nations and the European Union and the Red Cross movement. Last year, the United Kingdom was the largest donor of the UN's Central Emergency Response Fund, CERF. In conclusion, the United Kingdom remained clear that Maduro is illegitimate, and we as a nation recognize Juan Guaidó as constitutional interim president of Venezuela. It is important to keep in mind that we as nations should increase the pressure on Maduro with one united voice, demanding new credible, free and fair elections that can allow Venezuela to have the freedom, peace and security they've been seeking for so long. And as Stephen Hickey, United Kingdom political coordinator in the United Nations at the Security Council briefing on Venezuela stated, "The world cannot stand by in the face of this man-made crisis. The Venezuelan people deserve a better future. They have suffered enough at the hands of Maduro regime. Free and fair presidential elections is the only solution. The Council and the international community should do our utmost to support the same." Thank you.
Thank you, Bolivia. You are recommended to take your seats.
I now yield the word to the plurinational state of Bolivia.
Muchas gracias, hermanos y hermanas. Regards, Honorable President of the General Assembly, Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and all the delegation and heads of state who are present today. On behalf of the plurinational state of Bolivia and its president, Mr. Evo Morales Simon, it is an honor for me to stand here speaking to you. Nonetheless, the reason for my presence in this meeting is not honorable at all. For the past years, the worshipful Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela has been subject to all types of attacks by the international community. Few countries have spoken out for the sovereignty of this nation, one of them being Bolivia. It is a shame for the Bolivian people to see how our Venezuelan brothers are suffering from the hostilities of some states who, led by greed and other distorted intentions, are continually threatening the Venezuelan state. 6 years ago, President Nicolás Maduro took power in Venezuela. During his administration, he has proclaimed the ideals of the social revolution led by Mr. Hugo Chavez. Unfortunately, a harsh economic crisis hit the country and has caused shortages in food and other services. Not satisfied with this, Venezuela has been isolated from different organizations like the Summits of the Americas and the Southern Common Market, aggravating this situation. Despite the natural resources that Venezuela has, its disposition have undeniable value and makes it one of the wealthiest nations on earth. The oil reserves alone, the largest in the world, constitute a significant reason for countries to target Venezuela for establishing their political and economic. However, President Maduro has demonstrated that he will not give those resources for the benefit of foreign nationals. with the old excuse of fighting totalitarianism, of liberating the Venezuelan state from a so-called tyrant. Those governments who seek to seize the underground pressure of Venezuela have started efforts to create instability in the country. The best proof of this separation is the uprising of Mr. Juan Guaidó, who proclaimed himself as acting president of Venezuela and received plenty of international support almost immediately after his announcement. Around 50 states have spoken out recognizing Mr. Guaidó, including the majority of our brothers Latin American countries and European nations. Where then has sovereignty has been relegated? After centuries of social revolution, why have they forgotten the rights our fathers built for us? The broad recognition to Mr. Guaidó, considered he did not result elected through legitimate elections, whereas President Maduro did, is an indicator of the loss of confidence in democratic institutions. Hermanas y hermanos, Bolivia is deeply concerned by this situation and categorically condemns the unilateral sanctions and threats of intervention made to Venezuela by those governments and political organizations with false intentions of freedom and peace. It condemns the misuse of such an honorable institution that the humanitarian aid as a means to achieve their goals. Bolivia demands those countries who have illegally imposed economic sanctions on Venezuela to lift them. Bolivia urges those countries who have recognized Mr. Guaidó as acting president to reconsider their decision for the sake of democratic values, multilateralism, and sovereignty. Sovereignty is an inalienable right to all nations that allows them to govern themselves without any other country interfering, and so must it prevail, inalienable. Hermanas y hermanos, Bolivia reaffirms its compromise with a world where every nation is free and independent, where liberty is our common flag, where justice is possible, and where all people can live together in peace. Muchas gracias.
I now give the floor to the People's Republic of China.
One generation plants a tree, another gets the shade. Chinese proverb. Good afternoon, delegates, honorable chair, and all present here. In representation of the President of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, its Vice President Wang Qishan, and the people which inhabited, this delegation would like to cordially salute all other nations and thank them for their presence. Today, we are gathered in order to discuss the political and social crisis of Venezuela, a problematic that, through proper arguments and formal discussion, will attempt to find a solution to. It is known that Venezuela is currently undergoing a socio-political crisis, the worst in its history, with hyperinflation, soaring hunger, disease, crime and death rates, and massive immigration from the country. Some economists believe that this is a result of populist policies that began under the Chavez administration. Afterwards, the crisis worsened under the Maduro government, growing more severe as a result of low oil prices and a drop in Venezuela's oil production from lack of maintenance and investment. Once the context is clear, this delegation would like to specify the way in which the nation of China stands before the topic. Initially, oil is the most fundamental reason why China and Venezuela joined together. China needed a substantial amount of oil, and Venezuela offered it. The relationship flourished since then, and both built ties based on oil financing agreements. From 2007 to 2018, Beijing lent the Latin America country more than $67 million, according to the latest data on China-Latin America financing managed by the Inter-American Dialogue Study Center at Boston University. Currently, the People's Republic of China is notably one of the most important advocates for Nicolás Maduro, when leader Juan Guaidó defied him, naming himself interim president of Venezuela. Quoting the spokesman for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Hua Chunying, China supports the efforts executed by the Venezuelan government in order to maintain its sovereignty, independence, and national stability. Hua also stressed that Beijing is opposed to foreign interference in the affairs of Venezuela. In a message to Washington, the first government to recognize Guaidó and urged to increase international pressure against Maduro. Through the comprehension of this topic, the following proposals will be presented, based on each nation's socio-political and economic situations. The first one being to keep current relations and accords intact, in order to try and secure the oil supply that already exists so that existing loans can be paid. Expand and evolve the new agreements of strategic association, in the economic, commercial, financial, technological, and communicational field, to continue advancing in the deepening of the political, cultural, and economic relations. Listen and be open to the possible proposals of other nations in order to be able to arrive to one solution that will, ultimately, be best for the problematic at hand. Finally, this delegation thanks all others for being open to other proposals. This will be all from the delegation of the People's Republic of China.
Thank you, delegates. You are recognized to take your seats.
Having listened to the state of the previous delegations, there are no more names on the list of speakers. I now yield the word to the Secretary General, Luis Felipe Flotallamas.
The Secretariat of the General Assembly will present a resolution. The General Assembly, reaffirming the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, in particular, those to maintain international peace and security, and to that end, take effective collective measures to achieve them through peaceful means, and in conformity with the principles of justice and international law, the settlement of disputes or international situations which might lead to a breach of the peace. Reaffirming also the intention of fostering friendly relations among nations, based on respect to the principle of the self-determination of nations and international cooperation for the solution of problems of a humanitarian character. Recognizing that it is the duty of the nations to contribute to the peaceful solution of the internal conflicts of other states in the full use of their sovereign rights and their freedom for self-determination. Resolves to urge the member states to refrain from resorting to the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and to exhort the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela so that, in the solution of its internal conflicts, it adheres to the strictest respect for the human rights of its citizens. The General Assembly submits the resolution into consideration of the committee. With 144 votes in favor, 0 votes against, and 49 abstentions, Munio's resolution paper 1/2019 has passed. Congratulations.
I will now make some remarks in my president capacity. The Presidency of the General Assembly thanks all the delegations present for their time and disposition to reflect upon the critical situation that nations are living nowadays. The General Assembly is officially closed.
Munio 2019 leading team is strongly grateful for your presence and encourages you to keep walking towards the renown. Thank you.
Delegados, se levanta la sesión. Pueden pasar a sus comités para la sesión de las 6:45.
Padres de familia, externa, muchas gracias por haber asistido a la Asamblea General.